The Cyclist, by Erik Røde, 1755. Read by Annika J. Gandhi. Continued.
Chapter 10, Alone. Scene 48, Estranged and alone and a rainy night for storytelling. Carlo changed the topic, attempting to steer the conversation toward Alex's cycling career. Additionally, Carlo brought out a small, exquisite bottle of grappa to share with Alex and Ponti, pouring it into small, delicate glasses. Though the amount was modest, the warmth it generated filled Alex's body, offsetting the evening's chill. As Carlo gazed at the picture on the opposite wall, his thoughts drifted back to a time after his son Angelo's departure for America. Then, the story continued once more. At this point, Alex was so engrossed in the story that it was challenging to distinguish whether Carlo and Ponti were in the flashback or the present. Alex had to elevate his empathy for the events Carlo narrated and Ponti's seamless, organic immersion into the unfolding tale. He tried to discern for himself, "Oh, this part is in the flashback," then adjusted his perspective with, "Oh, we are now in the present time." Alex refocused on Carlo's narration. Loneliness settled upon Carlo's shoulders like a heavy shroud, but it was Ponti who bore witness to the silent suffering that unfolded in their home. She saw the longing in her husband's eyes whenever he glanced at Angelo's empty chair at the dinner table, and she felt the weight of his unspoken regrets. In the tranquil Italian countryside, Carlo spent his days reflecting on the chapters of his life. He pondered the twists and turns that had brought him to this point, contemplating the choices he had made and the impact they had on his world. And little did he know that destiny was weaving another thread into the fabric of his existence, one that would alter the course of his story once again. Carlo had been narrating his story for hours, but it felt like minutes. Carlo's weathered hands slowly traced the contours of his past, like a conductor leading an orchestra through a symphony of memories. Hours earlier, as he began to speak, his voice was a melodic cadence, each word carrying the weight of decades lived. Ponti sat beside him, her eyes fixed on the fireplace, where the flames danced in mesmerizing patterns. The crackling fire seemed to punctuate Carlo's words, accentuating the drama of his narrative. The physicality of his storytelling was palpable in the way his hands gestured, like a painter illustrating the canvas of his life. Alex listened intently, his own recollections merging with Carlo's tale. The rain outside added a poetic backdrop, its rhythmic patter serving as a backdrop to the conversation. Carlo's deep voice filled the room, carrying with it the essence of the Italian countryside and the weight of the years. "I was training with my cycling team," Alex recollected, his voice breaking the silence that followed one of Carlo's poignant stories. "The hills, the winding roads, they were all so new to me. And then, I saw Ponti by the side of the road, struggling with a flat tire." Carlo nodded, a hint of pride in his eyes as he looked at Ponti. "My Ponti, always so resourceful." She managed to attract the attention of a passing cyclist. Ponti blushed at the compliment, her hands folding in her lap. "It was your kindness that saved me that day," she said, looking at Alex with gratitude in her eyes. The room was filled with a sense of camaraderie, a connection formed through the physicality of shared experiences. Carlo's stories and Alex's recollections wove together, creating a tapestry of moments that spanned generations. As Carlo paused in his storytelling, there was a collective breath, as if time itself held its breath to savor the significance of the moment. The crackling fire seemed to hush, allowing the weight of their stories to sink in. Alex, his heart moved by Carlo's narrative, knew that this chance encounter was more than just a twist of fate. It was a moment of profound connection, a bridge between two worlds, and the beginning of a new chapter in all of their lives. Scene 49, The Youthful Exodus. As the warmth of Carlo's storytelling filled the room, there came a natural pause in the narrative. It was a moment to catch their breath, sip on tea, and simply enjoy each other's company. The rain outside had intensified, its gentle patter on the roof providing a soothing backdrop to their conversation. Alex, feeling a deep connection to these two kind souls, couldn't help but express his gratitude for their hospitality. I must say, Carlo, Ponti, this has been an incredible experience. Your stories, your home, it's all so rich and full of life. I feel privileged to have stumbled upon your cottage on this rainy night. Carlo smiled warmly, his eyes reflecting the fire's glow. You're most welcome, Alex. It's not often we have visitors, especially ones who appreciate the art of storytelling. Ponti, her eyes still sparkling with the spirit of a storyteller, chimed in. Yes, Carlo's tales have a way of drawing people in. But your presence here is a gift as well. It's not every day we get to hear stories from a traveler like you. Alex chuckled, savoring the tea that warmed his hands. Well, I've been fortunate to meet incredible people on my journeys, and you two are no exception. The cottage seemed to embrace them, its rustic charm and the shared stories forging a bond between these unlikely companions. In that moment, it didn't matter that they came from different worlds, they were united by the universal language of storytelling. Carlo leaned back in his chair, gazing at the crackling fire. Speaking of journeys, Alex, have you encountered other stories like ours in your travels? Alex nodded thoughtfully, then paused for a few moments before replying, actually, not really. Your stories are by far the most profound. The world is full of fascinating tales, each unique and powerful in its own right. Yet, what I've learned from my visits to your cottage is that it's the people behind the stories who truly make them extraordinary. Ponti, with a hint of curiosity in her voice, asked, and what's the most memorable story you've come across in your adventures? Scene 50, Opportunities. Alex's eyes lit up with the passion of a seasoned traveler. Well, there was this one time in Canada. As Alex began to recount a tale from his own travels, the cozy cottage filled with the music of his words, weaving another thread into the tapestry of their shared afternoon. Carlo's storytelling was interspersed with laughter and light-hearted moments as they chatted about various topics, including Alex's American humor, which occasionally tickled their Italian sensibilities. But as the hours passed, the firelight outside dimmed, and Carlo's voice grew more solemn, setting the stage for another chapter of his narrative. The confines of small towns often birth dreams that yearn for horizons beyond their reach, Carlo began, his voice carrying the weight of experience. He looked into the distance, as if peering into the past. As the 1930s and 1940s cast their shadows, many young souls, like my son Angelo in the late 1940s, embarked on journeys seeking prosperity and new beginnings. Alex nodded in understanding, having heard similar stories of youthful exodus from small towns in other parts of the world. The physicality of Carlo's storytelling was remarkable, his gestures, his expressions, all added depth to the narrative. In cities like Milan and Rome, Carlo continued, they hoped to find economic salvation in a time when economic struggles were harsh and unrelenting. The allure of urban landscapes held promises that seemed to shimmer like a distant mirage. Ponti chimed in, her voice tinged with a mix of pride and longing. Our son, Angelo, he was one of those bold souls. He dreamt of more than our quiet village could offer. His heart yearned for the world beyond these hills. Carlo's eyes met Ponti's, and there was an unspoken understanding between them, a shared love and sadness for their son who had ventured far from home. Alex, having listened to the tales of youthful exodus, felt a sense of universality in their stories. Dreams, aspirations, and the pursuit of a better life were threads that connected people across borders and cultures. The physicality of their shared moment in that cozy cottage was a monument to the power of storytelling, of bridging gaps between generations and backgrounds. As Carlo's narrative continued, the room seemed to transform into a portal through time, allowing them all to step into the past and relive the hopes and dreams of those who had once ventured beyond the confines of their village in search of a brighter future. Scene 51, Post-war changes. Carlo, continuing with renewed energy, said, in the aftermath of World War II, Europe was left to grapple with the profound and lasting impact of the conflict. The scars of the war ran deep, etched into the very fabric of the continent. Cities lay in ruins, economies were shattered, and countless lives were forever altered. Carlo and Ponti's small Italian village was not immune to the aftershocks of the war. The return of soldiers, some bearing physical and emotional wounds, brought both relief and a sense of trepidation. The villagers, like so many others across Europe, faced the daunting task of rebuilding their lives and their community. For Carlo and Ponti, there was a deep sense of gratitude and relief that their only son, Angelo, had been too young to serve in the war. As they watched the world around them try to heal, they often found themselves counting their blessings. Ponti, in particular, turned to her faith and prayed to the Virgin Mary, offering thanks for keeping Angelo safe from the horrors of battle. The old stone buildings of their village, which had witnessed generations come and go, stood as silent witnesses to the changing times. The younger generation, including Angelo, now carried the responsibility of rebuilding their beloved village and shaping its future. In the midst of post-war uncertainty, Carlo and Ponti's gratitude for their son's safety was a beacon of hope. It was a reminder that, despite the challenges they faced, they were fortunate to have each other and the opportunity to move forward with their lives. They knew that the world had changed, but their family remained intact, and that was a blessing they cherished deeply. Carlo and Ponti, too, were not untouched by the transformations that swept through their homeland. Their cottage, nestled in the countryside, remained a haven of warmth and stories, but they could not insulate themselves entirely from the evolving world around them. One of these changes was their only son Angelo deciding to venture to America. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky in hues of orange and purple, Carlo reflected on the shifting tides of time. He sat in the same weathered armchair by the fire, where he had shared tales with Angelo. But this evening, it was just him and Ponti, the crackling fire, and the memories that danced in the shadows. "Carlo," Ponti said softly, breaking the silence, "do you ever wonder what the future holds for our village and for us?" Carlo gazed into the fire, his thoughts wandering. "I do, Ponti. These are different times, and our son, Angelo, is far away in America. I sometimes wonder how he's doing, what kind of life he's built for himself." Ponti's eyes mirrored Carlo's sentiment. "Yes, our boy is out there, chasing his dreams in a land of opportunity. I pray that he's safe and happy." Their son's absence was a constant ache in their hearts, a reminder of the choices and sacrifices that had shaped their family's story. The world had changed, and their once close bond with Angelo had evolved into something they couldn't fully grasp. Carlo continued, his voice carrying the weight of a father's love and concern. "I hope he knows that we'll always be here for him, no matter the distance. The world may change, but our love for him remains steadfast." Ponti placed a hand on Carlo's, offering reassurance. "He'll find his way, Carlo, just as we did in our youth. Life has a way of leading us down unexpected paths." As they sat in the dimly lit cottage, the fire crackling and the world outside shifting, Carlo and Ponti shared a moment of reflection. The years had brought change, but their love and the stories they carried within them remained a source of strength and comfort in an ever-evolving world. Scene 52, a tale of separation and transformation. Carlo's life had become a poignant tale of separation and transformation, a reflection of the shifting tides that marked Europe's post-war landscape. His bond with his son, once unbreakable, now lay shattered, fragmented by conflicting aspirations and the weight of long-held grievances. The emotional walls he had erected around his heart loomed tall and impenetrable, and his resentment towards Americans seemed as formidable as ever. On another evening, while Carlo sat by the fire, Ponti approached him, her eyes filled with both concern and the weariness of years spent in silent suffering. "Carlo," she began gently, "I see how the rift between you and Angelo pains you. He's our son, and he carries a piece of both of us in his heart. Isn't it time we consider the possibility that he might find happiness across the ocean, just as we have found our own here? Carlo's face remained stoic, but his eyes betrayed a mixture of sorrow and frustration. You know how I feel about Americans, Ponty. The wounds from the stolen bicycle incident run deep. I can't bear to see him go down a path that might lead to more heartache. Ponty sighed, her voice filled with a subtle determination. Carlo, it's true that the past has left scars, but holding on to them won't heal us. Our son is a man now, with dreams and ambitions. We can't chain him to our fears and regrets. Carlo's gaze turned back to the fire. The crackling of the flames triggered a flashback to Angelo's final few months at home, accompanying their heavy silence. The chasm between father and son had grown wide, and it seemed insurmountable. Days turned into weeks, and Carlo and Angelo's interactions became increasingly strained. Angelo, sensing his father's disapproval, withdrew into himself. Their conversations grew shorter, and more often than not, they ended in uncomfortable silence. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and cast long shadows across the countryside, Carlo and Angelo found themselves sitting on the porch. The air was thick with unspoken words. Papa, Angelo began tentatively, I appreciate you, and I respect you tremendously. You've been my guiding light all my life. Carlo nodded, his expression tight but appreciative of his son's words. I want you to know that I'll always carry the values and lessons you've imparted, Angelo continued. But, Papa, I must go to America. I need to see the world, explore opportunities beyond these hills. Carlo's eyes, once filled with pride, now welled with sadness. He turned away, his voice strained. Angelo, you know how I feel about Americans. The pain they've caused me. Angelo placed a hand on his father's shoulder, a gesture of both reassurance and farewell. Papa, I love you, but I can't let the past define my future. I promise I'll make you proud, even if it's far from here. Tears welled in Ponty's eyes as she watched her husband and son grapple with their emotions. The unspoken pain hung heavy in the air, and their hearts ached with the weight of a relationship in transition. In the tranquil Italian countryside, where once laughter had filled the air, Carlo and Angelo's bond had irrevocably changed. The chasm between them had grown, and the journey towards understanding and reconciliation seemed long and uncertain. Little did they know that destiny was weaving another thread into the fabric of their existence, one that would challenge their perceptions and lead them on a path they had never anticipated.
The Cyclist, by Erik Røde, 1755. Read by Annika J. Gandhi.